Hello, dear book dragons. It's May now, and so I'm going to talk about the books I read in April. It's quite a big pile of 8 books. I nearly read 9. And yeah, let's get into it. The first book I read was a reread, The Tale of Top Hill Farm. And it's by Susan Wittig Albert. It's a very cozy, magical realism book about Beatrix Potter when she buys a farm, the Top Hill Farm in the Lake District. So if you've seen the movie about her, you know that she buys a farm with the money of her books in real life. This is not based on her real life, but you get to read in the end of every book, because it's a series of 8 books. There is talking about what actually happened in her life. So this is made up kind of cozy mystery, magical realism. The first book is not so much magical realism, but the thing that is magical is the animals that talk to each other. The humans don't understand, but yeah, they're very funny, very cute, and they have a very, very slow burning romance, because she is very sad in the first books when she lost her fiancé, William. No, sorry. I've forgotten his name now. But if you know her story, you know that she does meet a new man called William Healis, which she meets in this book. And you can see that they like each other, but they're both very shy. And as I said, this is also a mystery. So in the first book, this is set in 1905, by the way, in England, obviously. And if you don't know about Beatrix Potter, she was a very famous artist and writer of children's books. The writer of Peter Rabbit. He's the most famous of her books, I would say. And the people living in this little town where she buys the farm, they're kind of shocked that a woman has bought a farm, and like, how can a woman take care of her farm? How can a Londoner take care of a farm? But they get to realize that she does know quite a lot, and she's very interested in learning, obviously. And I don't remember what the mystery was. Oh yes, it's a villager who dies very unexpectedly. That's kind of not the mystery. A bit. It's kind of a mystery how she died. And there is a will, and there is a painting missing, and Beatrix kind of recognizes before the painting disappeared, because she had been to the village before, recognized this painting was missing, and no, it was a very valuable constable, small one, but still valuable. And yeah, it's just a very, very cozy cottage book read. And then I read actually some other books, but I will just show you the second book that I read a bit later, The Tale of Holly Howe, where the story continues about Beatrix and her animals. Oh yeah, I think I forgot to say that the animals in the first book is mostly animals in the village, the cats and the dog who you meet and who help solving the mystery. But in the second book, you actually get to know the animals living out in the countryside. So the badgers. Yeah. Did I say that right? Badgers. Oh, it's confused. Yes, badgers, definitely. And this story is also a mystery. Every book has a mystery. And you get to know the villagers. In every book, you get to know not just Miss Potter, there's also some lovely people living there. Some of them very original, and some of them love to gossip because they don't have so much else to do, really. So they're lighthearted, they're funny, a little bit silly, but very, very sweet. And sometimes I'm a very easy crier when I read, but I have cried when I read about this. Children in the book about being lonely, being different from the others and stuff like that. It's a lot of things going on because you don't just follow Beatrix, you follow some of the children and you follow some of the grown-ups as well, and the teachers and things going on in the school. So it's a lot of things going on. As you can see, I really like this one. I gave the first one 4.5 stars and the second one 5. I'm not really sure why. That's what I was thinking at the time. I think I like the second one better because you get to meet the old badger, and it's funny. I'm actually reading the third book right now, so I'll talk about that later when I do my May video. Yeah, but let's go on. After that, I read something totally different, These Old Shades by Georgette Heyer. She's kind of the first author who wrote Regency romance, and she lived in the 1920s, I think. She was very young when she wrote this book. This is one of her first books, not the very first, but one of her first, and it's kind of it's not a second book, but it's a continuum of her first book. But you don't have to read The Black Moth, that one is called, to read this one. They're just a little bit connected. And I must say, it was really funny to read. I have read another book of her a year ago, so a little bit difficult to compare, but I think this one was more fun. It's set in France, in Paris, most of the time, not all the time. And it's about this Duke of Avon, Justin, I think his name is, and a young girl called Leonie, but she kind of hides like a boy, called herself Leon. And just in the beginning of the book, she runs into him, and he buys her from her brother. Kind of weird. He saves her from her brother. He's not been treating her well at all, and she pretends to be a boy quite a long time in the book, and he knows, but he doesn't say anything for quite a long time. It is very funny. It is. I wouldn't say it's romantic. Is it romantic? You can definitely see they're really fond of each other, but he's much older than her. He's like, but I could be her father. He wants to protect her. He wants to take care of her, but he has a very bad. He has a very bad reputation. So yeah, it's complicated. And he also recognizes her. She has very typical. No, sorry, very not typical. She has a very special. She's red hair, and I think it's not green eyes. I think it's. Oh, I don't exactly remember, but he can recognize who her father is. That's the point. And he has an enemy, and that's her father. Maybe I'm saying too much now, but you get to realize this quite quickly in the book, so it doesn't really matter that I tell you this. It's very lighthearted. It's also kind of shocking how, because these are rich, high in society people, how they behave towards their, maybe not their servants, but people outside, in the common people. They just don't really care about them, how they behave to them. A kind of a redemption story, because he has this bad reputation, but you can see that he really cares. And yeah, it is sweet, it is funny, and it's also quite silly, which can be very fun. Yeah, that's that book. So I'll probably read more by Georgette Heyer, but maybe I won't actually buy it. See if I can find them at the library. And then I finished a book, a fantasy book. What's this own? yeah, this was kind of the only real fantasy I read in April. Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. And this is like a chosen one story set at a magical school about Simon Snow, who is the chosen one. He has very strong magic, but he can't really control it at all. And there's a very special magic system in this book, which I really like. It's like they say rhymes, so they like say words to make things happen. So it's not like abracadabra, it's more like tell me to shut up or you'll die or something like that. I'm just making it up now. And see if you stand your ground is one thing. And this is kind of a mystery. There is this the strongest magician in England who runs a school, who runs the whole country, really, when it comes to magicians. And so Simon Snow is his, like, heir, you could say. And there's this horrible, evil being called the Humdrum, I think, who makes holes in the air, magical black holes. And it's just such a funny book, and it's also romantic. He has two female friends, Agatha and Penelope, and Penelope is like kind of Hermione style person. So Penelope is his best friend, and Agatha is his girlfriend, at least in the beginning. And then he shares a room with Baz, who is a vampire, which is not okay. So he kind of has to pretend he's not a vampire. But Simon has been at this school since he was 11, I guess. Has been like following him very closely all years to get to evidence that he is a vampire. Yeah, I don't want to say too much about this because it's kind of a mystery, so I don't want to spoil so much. But it's just really, really fun. This is the first book in a series. I didn't realize that when I read this. I got this as a gift by my friend Sophie, colleague. So I think I will want to read the rest. I have heard from other people in book groups that the second and third book is not as good as the first, but it would be fun to know what happens after this book, because there are some loose ends, things we as a reader know at the end, but that they don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Yeah, that was Carry On. First book of 3. Yeah. I need to breathe. And then I read, well, in Swedish it's called Liv Brooks Nya Liv, Liv Brooks New Life, but it's actually not called that in English. It's called One Good Thing. I would say the Swedish one is better. By Alexandra Potter. And this is a really sweet, good, feel-good book. But it also has some quite depth to it. Quite a lot of sad things going on. You follow Liv when she moves to the Yorkshire Dales, where I'm born. Well, I'm not sure I'm born in the Dales. I'm born in Doncaster, somewhere in Yorkshire. And yeah, she's just, the book starts with that she has just been divorced. So she moves from London up to the Yorkshire Dales, by this old house that she needs to renovate, and she kind of, without having planned it, she adopts this old dog. You can see the old dog, and so that's how her new life starts, kind of. And she gets to know an old neighbor who's been very lonely, whose wife has dementia. He goes to visit her every day. She doesn't recognize him. So you can see it's a quite heart-wrenching story. And there's also this a very sweet young autistic boy who's another neighbor she meets, and also a teenager who needs some help in school. Liv is a teacher, and now she's not working as a teacher at all, so she kind of works as just helping, try to not working at a school, but helping people who wants help. Sorry. And they go visit Bronte house there and go on the hills and make literature alive for this young woman, which is really nice. And she also meets this hot builder because she needs to fix up the house. And she used to knew him when she was a child. Her grandparents lived in this area when she was a kid, so that's why she wanted to move there. And yeah, so it's a love story, a very sweet one, I must say. And I really love the friendship with the old man Valentine and the boy, forgotten his name, Stanley. And he's just the sweetest. So if you want something lighthearted but still very emotional, I can really recommend this. I gave it 4.2 stars. Oh yeah, I forgot to say the others. I'll do that at the end. Yeah. And then I read a real 5-star for me, The Other Bennet Sister by Janice Hadlow. I saw this in a video by Darling Desi, and I was just, I need to read that. And it was so good. It's not a light book. It's very contemplative. It's very it's just a lovely book. It's about Mary Bennet, so the middle sister to Lizzie and Jane and Kitty and yeah, the girl who ran away. And yeah, it is sad because she's the sister who nobody cares about, right? And Mrs. Bennet, she's such, I mean, you know, when you read the story about Pride and Prejudice, yeah, she would say that. It's based on Pride and Prejudice. For me, that's kind of obvious. Anyway, yeah, you see in the book and in the film that Mrs. Bennet is a horrible person, and we really get to see that even more in this book, because she doesn't care about Mary at all, because in her world Mary is ugly and boring, and she's been having this her whole life. And in the beginning of the book, when she's quite young, she's quite happy, and she loves to play with Lizzie and Jane, and Lizzie is her favorite sister. And but as older she gets, the more she sees how her mother doesn't care about her and always scolding her and looking strange at her. So you feel really sad for her. I think most people have felt like that we are, especially when we're teenagers, feel ugly and awkward. I really could see myself in her. She loves to read, she loves to play piano, and I'm the same. I don't play as much anymore, but I used to play a lot. So I can really see myself in her, and I think you get to see Lizzie meeting Mr. Darcy, and Jane meeting Mr. Bingley, and then there's a jump of 2 years. So you get to the ball, and she meets a sweet man there who she can't talk with really. Well, she can talk to him, but he's not a rich man, he's not a gentleman, so she knows there's no way her mother would approve, which is weird because her mother doesn't care. But anyway, so then it's a jump of 2 years where Mr. Bennet has died, which is really sad, and so she and her mother has moved to live with Jane and Charles Bingley, and his horrible sister. And she's not happy there. She's not happy being having her mother near, or Miss Bingley, obviously. So we get to see her being there for a while, but uh, she invites herself over to Lizzie's place, and she's quite happy there. And Lizzie has this cute little boy, and until Mr. Darcy comes home again with his sister, and she feels that he doesn't really understand her, so she doesn't really feel comfortable living there anymore. So she actually moves in with Charlotte and Mr. Collins in her old home. And she's quite happy there for a while. But it's kind of course, odd to be in her old home. It's not her home anymore. And she can see how unhappy both Charlotte and Mr. Collins are. And she tries to help them and befriend Mr. Collins, and things go wrong. She doesn't care about him at all. In the beginning of the book, she actually, before everything happened, she tried to show him that Mary, would be a good wife to Mr. Collins, but he didn't care about her at all. So that was also very sad. Yeah, so she stays there for a while, but it becomes very clear that Charlotte doesn't want her there, but after she's become too much friends with Mr. Collins about both their love of reading and discussing godly stuff. And so she turns to her aunt, the wonderful, wonderful Mrs. Gardiner, who we all have met, if you've seen the series, read the books. So she actually goes to London, and then this part of the book, and I think it's like almost half of the book by then, a bit less. That's when the happy part of the book becomes. Because, Mrs. Gardiner is such a lovely person, and she really blooms there with the children, and when the time of society starts again, and Mrs. Gardiner says, well, we're very sociable people, so we need to get you new clothes, because she's been using very dreary, boring clothes, and she can't wear them when they're going to have guests, and she doesn't want to. But Lizzie has sent her money for that, so then it's okay. So that's when the lovely part of the book starts, when she kind of actually enjoys getting dresses that she likes. And when they go to this clothes shop, she meets the lovely Mr. Tom Hayward, and that's when the romance starts. This is a lovely, he's a lovely person. And you know how it will go, but it takes quite a while. And if you remember from the first book, Lizzie was supposed to go with them to the Lake District, but they changed their plans for some reason, so they went to somewhere else in Derbyshire. But I mean, Mrs. Gardiner still wants to see the Lake District, so she brings Mary, and Tom Hayward goes with them. And during this period, he has a friend called Mr. Ryder, who also becomes a friend of the family, and he's very enchanted by Mary, and which kind of puzzles her. She likes him, but she likes Tom the best. But in the Lake District, which is really a lovely part of the story, Tom becomes kind of strange, for at least after Mr. Ryder and his friends, and he knows Miss Bingley. Miss Bingley comes as well. Kind of annoying. So that kind of makes it strange. They go up on this big hill, this raining a lot, and Mary and Tom, for some reason, don't really talk it out. So it drags out. I mean, you know, it will be a happy ending, but it drags out a bit. Yeah, I kind of told you the story now. But it's just a lovely, lovely book. I think the writer really knows how to tell you about people, how to feel for people. I mean, when you see in the first book, you don't really feel for Mary, you don't really feel for Mr. Collins, but in this book you do. Yeah, it's a 5-star read. I implore you to read it. Yes. And the last book I read was The Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd. Monk? Yeah. And this is a book about Anna, who born in Galilee, and she is she explains in the back of the book, it says she's the wife of Jesus. That's not in the beginning of the book. And she's the daughter of a rich man who's he's a scribe of Herodes, as we say in Swedish. Herod Antipas, we call him here. So, and she has learned to write and read. Most women at this time apparently didn't learn that, but she really wanted to. And she is the cousin of Judas, but he's not just her cousin. He's also her adopted brother. He's been adopted by her parents when his parents died. You don't get to meet him so much in the beginning because he's running around in the hills with Simon, and it's a very lovely book. It's also very dark. Is that the right word? It's brutal. It's a very brutal book. Her parents want to marry her off with a rich man, and they don't tell her that. They just dress her in very rich clothes and take it out in the market, and kind of introduces her to him out around a lot of people, probably so she won't make a scene. But she obviously is very upset and says, "Oh, definitely not." And Jesus is there, and when she falls and hurt herself, he helps her up, and then he has to disappear because people think he hurt her. That's very strange. And then then you go home again. So that's the first time she meets him, and a lot of things going on. Because her parents, I mean, she says she doesn't want to marry this man, but they can force her, and she has an aunt who lives with them. Her name is Jalta, and this aunt she's the only person in her family who really cares about Anna, and she's a very interesting person. She used to live in Alexandria. When her husband died, she moved to live with them. And you actually get to see a map at the beginning of the book. Sepphoris, the city of Sepphoris. And it's so many things going on in this book, but this old man managed to die anyway, and it's such, I mean, this is time of Jesus. This is a very long time ago, and apparently if your husband to be dies, you're tainted. It's so weird. And it's like she's what's it called in English? No, doesn't matter. Anyway, she does get to marry Jesus in the end. They meet at a place where she tries to hide her scribing bowl. Yes, her aunt gives her a scribing bowl where she writes a prayer. It's not a religious book, I would say, but it's very, what's the word? I had it before and now it's gone. It's a lot about God, obviously, but about the female side of God, Sophia, which is really interesting. I have read about Sophia before. If you read Sophie's World by Jostein Gardner, you will recognize this, and read other books about it as well. And yeah, you get to follow Anna when she's married to Jesus and things that happens to him from her point of view. So it's her story, not his story. And when he follows Johannes, John, they say in English. She can't come with him because John doesn't allow women, and she has to stay with Mary and his brothers and stuff and sisters. And because she lived a very rich life and Jesus doesn't, obviously. So it's quite a big shock for her. So when she has to work a lot. And a lot of things going on, and she has to leave the city because Herod Antipas is out after her because she helped his wife to escape when he wants to marry someone else. Anyway, so she leaves and goes to Alexandria with her aunt, and this is when I really found it so interesting because at this time the library in Alexandria was still existed. But unfortunately, the uncle they go to visit, he's the one who kind of forced her aunt to leave in the first place. But he says, well, you can live here, but you're not allowed to leave the house. So it's a very frustrating story. But in the end, they do leave and they go to a very special place that did exist for real. Where kind of you can't say it's an abbey or a monk place because it's both women and men living there, but they spend their life for God, but in very creative ways. In the end of the book, at last, after the story is finished, the writer talks about this place. I've forgotten the name of it. Doesn't matter, but. And she also talks about the thing about Jesus and a wife, because apparently it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that Jesus had a wife or didn't have a wife. And she had been thinking of writing this book for many, many years. And men at this time were supposed to marry. They were like, it's a natural thing for men to marry. So it could have been very strange that even he was young. Men. People would marry very young, so it is possible that he had a wife. But she is made up for this story. So as I said, it's a very brutal story, but also very, very lovely, and it's about female power. It's a film about female friendship to her aunt, and when her aunt wants to find her daughter, who's been taken away from her. She was 2. So yeah, it's a story about that as well. I gave it 4.8 stars. What was a little bit jarring for me as a Swede is that they have English names like Mary and John, and which was really weird. And it is about a Jewish woman, a Jewish family. So like, why doesn't the writer use Jewish names? In Sweden we say Maria and Johannes, and I don't know who James is supposed to be, but yeah, that was for me very strange and jarring. It took me out of the story a bit. That's why I didn't give it 5 stars. Otherwise I would have given it 5 stars. But also, as I said, very brutal. There happens some really horrible things in this book. So if you don't want to read about mutilations and people hanging on cross, don't read it. But we know the story, and as we know that Anna is a cousin of Judas and married to Jesus, well, you see it is a very sad story, and she is in Alexandria when all the things go wrong. So she does get a letter from Judas about his plans. Well, he doesn't say exactly what he's going to do, obviously, but she understands. So she goes back. But of course, she's too late. But yeah, it's a really, really good book. 4.8 stars. So that was the books that I read. Oh, I missed a book. Where is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. I also read a book called Den spanska körsbärsträdgården, The Sunset Over the Spanish Cherry Garden, maybe in English. I don't know why it's not here. But I gave that 3 stars. It wasn't a very good book. It was kind of cute in some ways, but it was it was over the top dramatic. It was like reading a soap opera. I really like the descriptions of the cherry trees and the horses. This is set in Spain, obviously, but the girl's head person's boyfriend who steals her money in the beginning, that is just so weird. Why would you give your account number to your savings to your boyfriend? That's just so crazy. And the farm where she works, after, because this boy steals his money, she can't buy the bar she planned to, so she has to get another job, and she gets to move to this farm outside the city. And there's a lovely man working there. It's his farm. But his girlfriend is horrible, and it's just over the top with this horrible woman. It's just crazy, and his ex-girlfriend is even worse. So it's just, yeah, it's not worth a read. Joe Thomas is the author. Yeah, it was interesting about the books, about the horses and the cherry trees and the dancing, because they dance flamenco. That was interesting, but otherwise not worth the read, I would say. Yeah, so those were the books I read in April. Thank you.